Hello and welcome. So today we're going to be talking about how to find a vet. Also, my allergies are kicking my butt, so if I sound weird or there's a lot of cuts, that's why. Anyway, so let's talk about how to find a vet. Obviously, if you get rats, you're going to need an exotics vet. So they're considered exotics because they're not a cat or a dog. A normal vet will see just cats and dogs. Exotic sees things like reptiles, amphibians, and small pets like guinea pigs, rats, mice, rabbits. And then if they all are also an avian vet, they'll see birds. Not all exotics see birds. Obviously, to start out, you should Google what's around you. You could also, if you have a dedicated rat rescue near you, hop onto their website and check their resources, because they probably have a page on there dedicated to the exotic vets that they recommend. And if they recommend them, there's a reason why. But if you don't have a dedicated rescue, start with Google. Some breeders will have these kinds of resources, but not all, so it's kind of hit and miss whether or not you can ask a breeder. But yeah. So the thing with looking them up is sometimes they have false information on their pages. So I've looked up exotics vets a lot, obviously, and I can't tell you how many times they say they treat exotics on their page and then you call them and they don't. So just get a list off Google and then work your way from there. So when you call them, you're going to want to ask a few questions to determine if you even want to go in there. So I typically ask, the first thing I ask is what their Jinx. Sorry, my cat's gonna drink my tea. Jinx. Thank you. So you're going to want to ask them a few questions. So basically, the first thing I ask is what their exam fee is, because exotics can be much more expensive. However, I do find that because people go in with that preconception, a lot of times exotic vets are extremely, ridiculously expensive. I've seen where their first appointment is $110 just for the exam fee, and that is, in my opinion, ridiculous. I would never pay that much just for an exam fee, because Jinx is getting into the dig box now. Jinx, you're not cute. I would never pay that much for an exam fee, because if they think it's okay to charge that much for an exam fee, all their prices are going to match that. So antibiotics that I could normally get for say $20-30 would be $60 probably, and it just becomes too much, even if you only have a couple of rats and you have a vet fund like I do. I mean, obviously I have a ton of rats, but I have a vet fund, but it's still, it can get drained quickly that way. Another thing you want to ask is how much rat experience specifically that vet has. Even if you go to an exotics vet, they may not have a ton of rat experience. So most exotic vets that they have most experience in is almost certainly going to be rabbits. In the reptile side, probably beetle dragons, leopard geckos, the common pets. Rabbits are, I think, the third most common mammal to be kept as a pet, so they're going to have the most experience with rabbits. And they may not even see rats that often, so you do want to ask how much specifically rat experience they have, just to make sure that they kind of know what's going on. Even if they don't have a lot of rat experience, they might still try to treat them, and then you might find yourself in a situation where you know a ton more than the vet does, and they're not going to listen to you, because sometimes they get a little bit of an ego about that. And usually the last question I ask before, just to determine if I even want to go in, is what surgeries they do. Because just because they see a rat does not mean they're willing to do the full extent of treatment. So most vets are willing to do antibiotics for upper respiratory infection, but they won't necessarily do surgeries. Some aren't equipped to do surgeries, and some just don't have the experience to do them. So I ask if they do spays and neuters, and if they do tumor removals, which are the most common surgeries you're going to run into with rats. Sometimes they'll do one and not the other. I've run into vets that will do neuters and tumor removals, but not spays. I've seen some that won't do any. I've seen some that will do the tumor removals, but not a neuter or a spay. If you have just males or just females, you obviously don't need both spays and neuters, but still, it's good to ask. So once you ask those questions, if you get, I also ask how much those surgeries cost, because It's good just to get a price range of everything to determine which vets you're going to try first and which ones you're going to leave for a later date. So once I determine all that, all the prices. Hey, Say. Hey, baby. You just want your dinner, huh? Yeah, hi, baby. Once you determine all that and you decide which vet you want to try first, that's just to determine who to go to first. Because once you get there, things might be different. So you want to check what the vet's bedside manner is, and like, what do you want in a doctor? I don't like to be coddled. Oh God, hi. My dog's being pathetic. I don't know if you can see her. But anyway, I don't like to be coddled personally, so I don't want a vet who's going to do baby talk. I don't want a vet who's going to be exceedingly gentle with me. I don't want a vet that's going to, like, you know, that hesitant way they can sometimes talk where they're like, again, it's like similar to being gentle, but it's just like that soft voice telling you like bit by bit what needs to happen. I don't want any of that. I want you to tell me what's going on, give me the medicine or the treatment plan, and let me go. I do not need you to walk me through every single reason why something is the way it is. I've been here a long time. I don't need gentle. I need upfront. My favorite vets are the ones who just are very blunt. Some people hate that, which is reasonable. If you want someone who's soft and gentle and kind, that's fine. I want blunt. I want someone who walks in, tells me what they think's going on, and gives me the treatment plan and walks out. So that's obviously very personal. I also check how they handle my rats, because some vets, even exotics vets, will treat your rats unkindly. I had a rat named Ruffian, and she had an abscess on her neck, and it was huge. It was like the size of a golf ball, and I went to get it taken care of, but before I actually made the appointment, it drained on its own, but it left a huge scab just like on the side of her neck. And the vet, without warning me, trigger warning, click the skip buttons a couple times if you don't want to hear something that might be gross and might also count as animal abuse. But without warning me, this vet grabbed the scab and ripped it off Ruffian's neck, and Ruffian screamed bloody murder and did the mad rat dash all around the room until I managed to catch her. And then the vet stared at me like I was insane when I was holding Ruffian to my chest and trying to calm her down. I never went to that vet again, because that is beyond inappropriate behavior in my opinion. At the very least, you should have asked my permission or checked to see if I even wanted you to touch her in that way. And she didn't, so, and one of the worst experiences I've had at a vet. And then, like, one of the vets I do like, he does something that I'm not a huge fan of, which is technically fine, but he'll grab my rats by the base of their tail, so, like, close to their body, just so that they don't try to run away from him. And I hate that. Absolutely hate it. He's not hurting them at all. I just hate it. So it's like, how much is that kind of thing gonna bother you? For me, I'd rather you just accept you're gonna get scratched and clawed and hold my rat. So lastly, obviously, you can look at the reviews that pop up when you look up these vets. I tend to take a lot of reviews with a grain of salt, because people are obviously very attached to their pets, which is reasonable, and when things go wrong, sometimes they do lash out. However, if you see one thing popping up over and over and over again, I would pay attention to it. Like, one of my local vets, they have a bunch of reviews saying that when they posted a bad review, the vet banned them from their practice, which is petty at the very least. So petty. And I can understand the vet's impulse to do that, but when you run a business and someone's not happy with the business you're doing and your response is to ban them, you're not really leaving a great impression. You're going to want a primary vet and a secondary vet for when your primary vet's booked up. It may not be as much of a factor for you, but sometimes you're going to need an emergency appointment, so having some backups is a good idea. So I would just have a list of just in cases. So yeah, and you're going to have some bad experiences, because that's just kind of how it is as a rat owner. You're going to run into a vet that's dumb or egotistical, like especially vets that think they know how to treat rats even though they haven't seen them. You're going to run into them who are unwilling to listen to you despite the information you bring to them, convinced that they know more than you because they know more about other animals, and it will get in the way. Like, my friend had a rat who had pituitary tumor, and the vet was so convinced that they knew better that she just kept saying all the symptoms were because of mites. The rat had mites too, of course, because mites happen when their immune system, because they can get a flare-up of mites when their immune system is weakened, which pituitary tumor is obviously going to do. So she had mites, and the vet was so convinced that she was right, my friend didn't know anything was going on, that as my friend was, she refused to do anything but treat the mites. And as my friend was leaving, the vet gave her this piece of paper that listed the symptoms to look out for a pituitary tumor, and all those symptoms were the reason she was in at the vet, and she told the vet the rat was displaying, but the vet refused to listen. So you're gonna run into things like that, and unfortunately, you just kind of have to power through. It's not fun, obviously. I had to take Foggy into a vet I don't particularly like, and I don't really use, even for my free-range animals, because they're one of the vets that I do feel is in it for the money. Most vets aren't. They, I feel, are. But they don't normally see rats. But it was the only appointment I could get, and Foggy had an upper respiratory infection. And this was like a few months ago, so like she's fine now. But I had to take her in, and this vet was like my worst nightmare of vets because she had no idea what she was talking about. She baby talked the entire time. She was very slow, like doing that, like methodically walking me through everything, even while I was telling her what needed to happen. And then she was just ignoring me because I wasn't a vet, and like, despite knowing I had a lot of rat experience, just assuming that she knew better. And then she gave Foggy just Baytril, which if they have a respiratory infection, Baytril and Doxy work better together. Or my other vet does azithromycin too. 2 antibiotics in general work better than the one, because like which admittedly I knew going there was a bad idea, especially because as she was getting the meds together, she went into the back to read a book about how to dose them, which was, I should have just walked out at that point. I should have been like, I'll just pay for the exam fee, goodbye. But yeah, the reason Doxy and Baytril work best together is because Baytril kills the bacteria, but Doxy keeps it from reproducing. So one on their own isn't going to do as much as them together. But yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. All the fun stuff down below. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!